Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Easton and I have a secret to share. But before I do, make sure and subscribe and give it a big old thumbs up if you like it or you find it useful, or if you have a little goodness in your heart to share and just want to help me reach my goals. And if you're new to this channel, I'm a flight attendant. I primarily make flight attendant content, but from time to time I make content based on my life, things that I'm involved in or things I'm just passionate about. As a matter of fact, this video right now is about something I'm currently involved in. See, people are all about Airbnb and Vrbo to rent out their homes or rooms in their homes. And honestly, both are great options if you have extra rooms. Actually, I would recommend both of these platforms. Airbnb over Vrbo. Full transparency, I've never actually used Vrbo. I'm a huge Airbnb fan though. Anytime I travel, if a hotel is way too expensive, which they normally are, then Airbnb is always my go-to, especially international because you get more of the local experience to an Airbnb house. But that's beside the point. I'll tell you right now, this video is not about putting those platforms down. This video is actually about opening your eyes to another more underserved market. See, I bought my house 1 year ago with my girlfriend. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. We stay in one of the rooms with the bathroom, so that leaves 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms completely unutilized. So house hacking was the obvious route. And if you're not familiar with house hacking is finding ways to make your home generate income for you while you build equity in that home. So with 3 unused bedrooms, I see opportunity. And you may be in the same boat. And like I mentioned, while most would list their unoccupied rooms on Airbnb or Vrbo or even Furnish Finder, or maybe you just rent out that extra room or rooms to your friends and family. But the underserved market that I mentioned earlier is called a crash pad. Now, what is a crash pad? A crash pad is a place where airline crew, that's pilots or flight attendants, can rent a bed and just simply crash for the night. A crash pad is an extremely important resource for airline crew, and here's why. I'm a flight attendant, all right? Let's just say I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but I'm based in Dallas, Texas. Well, a base is where you have to start and end every single work trip you do. That means if I'm required to be at the airport for sign-in at 6 a.m. on Thursday, there's no flight that's gonna get me from Fort Lauderdale to Dallas at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. On Thursday. So I gotta come in the night before, and that would mean I need a hotel room for Wednesday night. This way, I can be at the airport at 6 a.m. for my sign-in, and all is well. Well, flight attendants usually work around 20 days a month. That means that assuming I have 5 early morning sign-ins each month, I would need roughly 5 hotel stays. And that's just for sign-in. That's not even including if you go to work for that early sign-in, and that's a 3-day rotation, a 3-day trip, and you get home on Saturday night at 11 p.m., and the next flight to Fort Lauderdale out of Dallas isn't until 6 a.m., well, I need somewhere to stay. So that means I'll need another hotel room. And you can imagine how this would add up. This would get incredibly costly for a flight crew. So the benefit of the crash pad is that the airline crew would no longer have to concern themselves with booking a hotel, with the cost of a hotel. Instead, they pay a flat price each month for a bed and a home that they can go to whenever they need. There's absolutely no hassle. There are 2 types of beds in a crash pad, cold and hot. A cold bed is a bed that one person can purchase month to month. It's theirs. Nobody else can use it. So if they're paying $350 a month for that bed, that means that bed can stay cold the entire month. That person doesn't even have to come in and utilize it, but they have it just in case. A hot bed is a bed that is slept in by a new person nearly every single night. It's kind of like a hostel. This is a cheaper option for each person utilizing the bed because you come in for a night and you bring your own sheets. Way more of a hassle if you ask me. There is a ton of turnover, a new body in that bed almost every single night, so that bed stays hot. That's the difference between hot and cold beds. And if you run a crash pad, you rarely ever mix hot and cold beds in the same crash pad. So for example, me, I run a crash pad that is exclusively cold beds. And I realize that hot beds may be more lucrative in the long run, but because I live in the house, I like to know who my tenants are month to month. It would be way too much involvement if a brand new person was walking through my door every single day. Now, if you hear this and you're like, wait, I've got 2 extra rooms in my house and I would not mind just having a flight attendant or pilot come in every once in a while and utilize that bed. How do I get started? What do I do? Well, to start, you've got to ask yourself a few simple questions. 1, is my home 5 to 15 minutes from a major airport? If yes, great. Your house is already ideal for a crash pad. And make sure it's a major airport, all right? If it's like Savannah, Georgia, no one uses a crash pad for that. It's more like Atlanta, Minneapolis, Dallas, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Airline crew do not want to get to the airport late one night after a 3-day trip and then have a 20 to 30 minute Uber ride to look forward to in order to get to their crash pad. They want to arrive at the airport and know that they have 8 short minutes before they can be in bed. Now, I know some crash pads that are this far, that are like 20 to 30 minutes away, but what they lack in travel time, they gain in quality of the stay. So they offer just about everything. Tiny little bottles of water, they offer a pool, private rooms, etc., all at a competitive price to a crash pad that is very close to the airport without all the perks. So it's possible, it's just more difficult. You have to offer more if you're gonna be further away from the airport, because travel time is really, really difficult to compete with. Now, number 2, is my home big enough? I'll be honest with you, most homes are already crash pad ready. You may just have to rearrange a few things here and there. For example, when my girlfriend and I started our crash pad about a year ago, we had to rearrange the living room furniture because there was no walkway. So it's the TV. As a matter of fact, look at this right here. I'm showing you the living room right now. There was no walkway. We had to break the couch apart to make this work. And in a crash pad, the airline crew will probably use the kitchen and definitely use the living room spaces, any common spaces. See, when the crew is on call, they want to be able to chill in the living room and just simply watch some TV. Or if they get in early for a trip later that day, they might want to come in and just cook something real quick. So you want to have all the essentials, a TV in the common space, obviously cooking utensils in the kitchen. Although, just a note, most of them are just going to Uber Eats. It's pretty rare that they'll cook anything from my experience, although some might. And as I hinted at earlier, you'll want a TV in the common spaces because on call days, you have to be within 2 or 3 hours of an airport. So most likely the flight crew and whoever's staying at the house, the crash pad, is going to want to just chill on the couch and stream something. So have some streaming apps available, or better yet, just have a TV that can utilize AirPlay or Google Cast. And number 3, lastly, does your HOA, neighborhood, and insurance allow it? So I intentionally chose a house that does not have an HOA. I can't stand the thought of an organization telling me what I can and cannot do with my house, and that includes running a business out of it. And before anyone comments in the comment section, oh, well, an HOA gives you, look, I get it, I do. Beautiful neighborhoods with an HOA. You got amazing yards. Hey, I love it, great. I still want nothing to do with an HOA if I can help it. So if you do have one, just make sure you're allowed to run an Airbnb-like service from your house. And as far as insurance goes, make sure you talk to your insurance. I'm pretty serious about this one because I recently ran into this problem. I thought my home insurance knew that I was running a business out of my home, and they didn't. Now that's miscommunication on my part. Fully accept responsibility on that. So now I'm giving a warning to you. Just be open and honest, because you do not want something to go wrong and then later your insurance is like, wait, you had tenants at your house? And then not get covered for something that happened. So right now I'm actually switching insurance to ensure that I have everything covered. And that includes something my tenants may accidentally do to the house. Just good advice in general. Just be open and honest. And to restate these questions, do you live 5 to 10 minutes away from an airport? Do you have the space in your home? And lastly, does your HOA and insurance allow you to run a business from your house? And if you answered yes to these 3 simple questions, then great, you're ready to get started. Have some beds available, have some space under the beds, common spaces, the kitchen with the utilities. It's really not difficult. The most difficult part is if you don't own a home and you want to start a crash pad, then you gotta buy the house, and there's a lot of upfront cost to that. But if you do own a home, all you need is some twin beds and then the bed frame that has some space underneath, and you can buy that for pretty cheap on Amazon. Matter of fact, that'll all be listed in my link in the description below with my Amazon storefront. And just to set the record straight, it's not exactly normal to run a crash pad and live in the crash pad. Most crash pads are run independently, but I can tell you from experience, my girlfriend and I have been running this crash pad for about a year with 9 beds in it, all 9 beds filled, and it's been amazing. It's paid for the mortgage. We started an LLC, so we write off anything that we use for the business, so basically 80% of the house. And truthfully, we rarely see the tenants, and that's again 9 beds. On average, we probably see each tenant maybe 2 or 3 times a month. Because you have to keep in mind, the whole point of a crash pad is to not be at the crash pad. Honestly, if I'm the flight attendant and my flight lands in Dallas at 9 p.m., and there is one last flight going back home to Fort Lauderdale at 9:30 p.m., I will do everything in my power to make that flight before I have to go to a crash pad. That's because the crash pad is like insurance for airline crew. It's not somewhere you want to be, but if you have to be, it's nice to have it. And just to clear up any confusion, no, there's no platform like Airbnb or Vrbo. There's no app. This is all word of mouth type of advertising, or you join Facebook groups. But if you talk to any airline crew and say, hey, I run a crash pad, they know exactly what you're talking about, and they probably know someone who needs it. And to be clear, you do not have to be a flight attendant or pilot to run a crash pad. Just know their wants and needs, and you can know that by watching videos like this. There are other things that would really help with a crash pad, like Yale locks. These are locks that you can program, and you can have individual codes, and you can delete the codes on a whim. And you can automate utilities like with an Ecobee thermostat. That way at a certain time of day, it turns the temperature down, and certain time of day, it turns it up, whatever you want. Or you can have front and back porch lights come on at a certain time. The more automated you make your house, the better. And I can do a video where I dive in deep and tell you exactly how I run a crash pad. If you find this video interesting, even if you don't, it's content. I'll probably make it anyway, but let me know in the comments. And any of the things I just mentioned right there, I'll have in the in a link in the description below. You can look at my Amazon storefront. There's a little tab called Crash Pad. You can see exactly what I utilize to run my crash pad. And just so you know, if you're wondering numbers, we bring in about $3,200 a month, roughly $38,000 a year from our crash pad. And it's all pretty automated. Again, I run cold beds, so I know exactly how much I can expect. And then if one of my tenants is like, hey, I don't need it next month, they let me know about a month in advance, and I fill the bed. That's it. I post on some Facebook groups, fill the bed, and everything's fine. Plus, when you're dealing with airline crew only, they're kind of already vetted for you. Airline crew have to go through extensive background checks before they can get hired, so that's pretty great. And y'all, that is all for today. If you're curious, you're like, actually, I want to run a crash pad. How do I really get started though? Can you give me more details? Let me know in the comments. I'll make another video. I'll dive in deep. I'll tell you everything about my crash pad. I'll give you a whole tour, everything. And like I mentioned before, you can follow me on the socials. You can make sure and subscribe here. But you can follow me on the socials, and you can shop my Amazon storefront with a link called Crash Pad in the actual Amazon storefront. All in the link in the description below. These are all items that I have actually bought and currently use in my crash pad. And that is it. I will see y'all next time. God be with you.